great to be here. This is Rico Hizon reporting, wearing a face mask. Of course, every one of us now, when we're out of our respective homes, have to wear a face mask. But I think now that I'm indoors and about to speak in this HR Innovation Conference, I have to take it off. It's just all about branding. It's great to be back in the Philippines, having worked for 25 years overseas with CNBC Business News and BBC World News. And now I'm back home in our beautiful country, working for CNN Philippines, news you can trust. Okay. I'm truly honored to share the morning with all of you for this pivot or perish HR Innovation Conference in this new normal. I'm truly honored to be in the same breath to be introduced with one of my co-speakers for today, Coach Chot Reyes. Coach, I miss you on the sidelines now that I'm watching the PBA in the bubble in Angeles, Pampanga. I'm always looking for you, hoping that you will coach once again and maybe get those technical fouls and shout to the players that they're not making the right plays. But you know what? I am really very honored to be with all of you this morning in this new normal, which is a catchphrase now often used to describe this time in our lives when much of what we've been used to and taken for granted has changed drastically, if not gone for good. Now we hear the terms work from home, hashtag WFH, Grab, Panda deliveries, Plantito and Plantita, Zoom meetings like what we're having right now, birthday reunions and social distancing. These are the terms that have slipped into our daily conversations as we continue to wage war against the volatile and deadly COVID-19 virus. Face masks and face shields have gone beyond the surgical looking aids that first appeared on the market and have now basically morphed into stylish looking accessories, providing welcome income for tribal and impoverished communities. You know, we have to trust the Filipino to get creative and CSR oriented during this crisis. I have been asked to talk about my transformational journey from Manila to Hong Kong, Singapore, London, and my job with three of the world's most noted news organizations and back here in Manila. So this is what I will be sharing with all of you today. So having been a reporter and news anchor for quite some time, you know, let me count the decades, 32 years to be exact, I reported and I have stood witness to a virtual parade of events that have served to define our lives, such as stock market crashes, economic slowdowns, presidential elections, natural calamities like volcanic eruptions, typhoons, tsunamis, and earthquakes. I've seen them all. But now we have this COVID-19 pandemic and the corresponding race to discover the vaccine that will hopefully solve the worst health crisis of the century. So the phrase I would use to aptly encapsulate my past 3 decades and 2 years in this broadcast industry and as an OFJ, which is Overseas Foreign Journalist, is I live, breathe, and eat news. That's what I do throughout my 32 career in broadcast journalism. So without doubt, I'm really extremely proud of my work, but the stories wouldn't have been written and produced without the faith and guidance of certain individuals who have been instrumental in nurturing my career and nurturing my journey. So these include the late columnist and lawyer Art Borjal and the team of Issues and Answers. That was way back in 1988. My mentor, attorney Ricardo Dompuno and the Viewpoint staff. My former colleagues at GMA News and Public Affairs in the 1990s. The team of CNBC Business News who gave me my big break in international news and was connected with for 7 years from 1995 to 2002. And lastly, the producers and editors at BBC World News in Singapore and London, my home for the past 18 years until March 2020. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, most importantly, if I have succeeded as a professional and as a human being, that is all due to the love and support of my family, my dad, Jose, Pepe Hizon, who is now 92 years old, my late mom, Rico Hizon, and my wife, Melanie, and my 16-year-old son, Migo. They are my eternal rock and inspiration. So, you know, family has always meant the world to me. When I left for Hong Kong in 1995 to live my dream as an international broadcast journalist, my dad asked me, how long did I intend to be away? Well, you know what? I was telling him from 1995, maybe it will only be a few years. You know, how was I to know that I was going to enjoy myself tremendously and derive so much satisfaction as a trailblazer in my chosen field? And before I knew it, what, 5 years extended to 10 years, it stretched all the way to 15 years, and then stretched to 20 years. And as they say, time flies when you're really having fun with what you are so passionate about. So in this case, not only was I enjoying myself, I was, finding fulfillment, growing as a media professional. So, when my dad turned 90 years old a couple of years ago, he posed the same question before I started out on my foreign journey. When are you coming home? And, you know, ladies and gentlemen, that's when it dawned on me, my over 2 decades with Melanie and Migo away from home was coming to an end. So my wife and I decided that 2020 would be the right time for the family to move back to Manila. So in the middle of last year, we set things in motion and started looking for a school for our son Migo that he would be happy and would fit in perfectly. So things, quickly fell into place, and he enrolled in his new school in January. And I left BBC World News in March after 18 years. So that was just about 7.5 months ago. Of course, our departure, Melanie, myself, and Migo, it was a very emotional one. It was certainly not easy since we had lived in Singapore, the Lion City, for 22 years. Our son Migo was born there. We had been surrounded by wonderful friends and a great environment, but family was and will always be important to us. And so we are now back home. You know, little did we know the immense challenge that we and our kababayans, not to mention the rest of the world, were going to face in 2020. And it was called the coronavirus, or the COVID-19. And besides adjusting to the hectic life in the metro, there were the quarantine lockdowns as well to contend with. But with technology in the shape of the latest age, like what we have right now, how we're communicating to each other, and how I'm communicating to all 200 of you in this HR conference. I mean, we have Zoom, we have WhatsApp, we have Viber, and Skype, and the other digital platforms. Thankfully, it made it a little easier for all of us not to miss our old life in Singapore. So personally, I am learning again to be part of an extended family where even friends are considered part of the family. So while I continue to perform my utmost at work at CNN Philippines, I also eat, breathe, and live family with joy and deeper meaning as we are back here in Manila. It has been quite a difficult transition, but we have tried to adjust and adapt to the best way we can. But let me get back now to my work, which is at which has been a journey of 32 years as a broadcast journalist, because from 1995 to 2020, day in and day out, I was singularly blessed to have represented our country, Asia, and the world to hundreds of millions of viewers on CNBC and BBC World News. I'm sure not a whole lot of you watching me right now know me, because I left way back in 1995, because I could have stayed in Manila and be where my current colleagues are in the broadcasting industry, but I wanted to trailblaze. I wanted to be a catalyst for all Filipino broadcasters, and I wanted to make a name for Filipino news anchors overseas. That's why I decided to move to Hong Kong and join CNBC in 1995. And I have no regrets, because to this day, I continue to look back in awe and humility that I was chosen to fulfill such a great opportunity to work for two of the world's leading broadcast organizations, CNBC and BBC World News. So as a broadcast journalist, my 25 years with these two organizations in Hong Kong and Singapore taught me so much in terms of editorial values. And among these, I have learned to act independently of any interest and aspire to the highest ethics. I have absorbed the key principles of impartiality, fairness, and accuracy. And this means I take extraordinary measures to provide a full and fair view of people and cultures. You know, CNBC and BBC, the BBC audience is a global one, and therefore it is important to respect differences in viewpoints, as well as be mindful of inclusivity. You know, I'm always conscious of respecting people's right to privacy and maintaining the standards of good taste and decency. Today, ladies and gentlemen, journalism across the world, no matter what platform they inhabit, traditional or social media, are confronted with a vast and unceasing news lineup, headlined these days by the COVID-19 pandemic, and you still have that elusive cure. Will that elusive cure, will that vaccine come from China? Will it come from Russia? Will it come from Germany? Will it come from the UK? Will it come from the United States? So this is still, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. And you know what? This is also followed closely by elections in the United States. You also have developments in the UK, France, Japan, and China's ever looming shadow. So this is all intertwined in the news that I deliver day in and day out, 24/7. In the Philippines, the coronavirus and related issues have basically hijacked center stage. We are fighting a most unpredictable and violent enemy. While our brave medical frontliners are protecting and saving lives, we, the media professionals, also have a vital role to play in this pandemic drama. Although ours is a different battle, now as CNN Philippines senior anchor, I have taken my place among my colleagues, armed with the best practices I've gleaned from my 25 years overseas. So round the clock, we contend with rumors and misinformation. I'm sure all of you know that. Fake news that are so rampant during these confusing times. And against this backdrop, we struggle to disseminate facts that are well-researched and as authentic as we can make them by, providing both sides of the story, both sides of the coin, the pros and the cons. And as a result, we hope to empower people with information that they can rely on to make the right decisions. And in these uncertain times, it is also quite vital that a news stream presenting balanced, accurate, and fair information be available. No matter the subject, whether it be business, politics, sports, like Coach Chot, or even lifestyle or entertainment, the journalist's responsibility to the story and audience is clear and uncompromising. And so this is the bedrock of CNN Philippines, which we carry the motto, news you can use, news you can trust. I'm sure 100% of us in this conference all have Facebook accounts, Twitter, IG, and maybe even, TikToking. But let me advise you, when you see a news feed and you have certain doubts or do not understand the story, please, as much as possible, don't share it with friends. Because there's a lot of trolls out there. There's a lot of fake news and sensationalized news. So if you do share news with friends and relatives, or with, even friends, not only here, but overseas, please, as much as possible, only share news from the trusted names in news and current affairs. Only share those that have credible, fair, and accurate news. That is basically the trend right now. People just sharing anything and everything. But we have to think not only once, not only twice, but 3 times before we share. That is our responsibility to ourselves and to our fellow kababayans. So as much as possible, ladies and gentlemen, think first before you share. Just don't share because it's interesting, because it's fun, because it's controversial, it's sensationalized. There's a lot of misinformation around us right now. So while it's true that I have absorbed valuable insights from CNBC and BBC World News, having lived and worked overseas for 25 years, I believe that I also brought to their table, the unique contributions of a Filipino media professional who worked in the local broadcasting industry from 1988 to 1995 before trying his luck overseas. Manila's newsroom boasts of an abundance of patience, persistence, optimism in the face of overwhelming odds, grace under extreme pressure, and ingenuity, especially when resources are scarce. Diyan magaling talaga ang Filipino. We always try to use our contacts across the board to be able to find the right news and the most accurate news to report. But what truly sets, ladies and gentlemen, the Pinoy journalist apart is his or her ability to find joy and passion in the work wherever they're planted, and no matter what the circumstances that they encounter. Our media professionals have made it a habit to achieve the impossible. And as the late former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt once said, happiness is not a goal. It's a byproduct of a life well lived. So the Pinoy journalist has never learned to fear life, but instead has always welcomed the adventures, even learning to celebrate the harshest challenges. And the stories we tell are richer for it. So thanks to the efforts of major media networks, which have been promoting citizen journalism, we are enjoying right now an unprecedented level of vigilance among the public who armed with, a phone and familiarity, with social media, are able basically to pass on valuable information to professional journalists who in turn pursue these leads and craft these stories. However, ladies and gentlemen, there is still much to be done. Those among us who have been fortunate enough to work for international media outfits have the responsibility to share what we have learned. So I know that from personal experience, the best practices of CNBC and BBC World News, combined with our very own Pinoy principles and traditions, have transformed me into a well-rounded international broadcast journalist who eventually went forward to become a program news anchor, a Pinoy news anchor to be exact, being welcomed daily into the homes of millions of viewers. Today, I'm still overwhelmed that I was bestowed this privilege of such an opportunity to do the work I love, enjoy, and pursue with passion. And it's time to pass on the blessings that the good Lord saw me worthy to experience. And I will do that now that I am back in the Philippines with CNN Philippines. I will try to impart all the knowledge, the best practices that I've learned overseas to my fellow Filipino journalists. You know, but these blessings just didn't, basically fall on my lap. It was a product basically of hard work and perseverance, because my career, ladies and gentlemen, began at the very bottom of the ladder. I wasn't discovered or immediately given a prime time slot in the newsroom when I entered the industry. I started as a gopher, as a utusan, a production assistant, tasked to make coffee, produce scripts, be a cameraman, edit video. You know, there were even times when there was no news driver in the newsroom. I would drive the reporter and the assistant cameraman to Malacanang, to the Batasang Pambansa, wherever they needed to be, because that was my responsibility as a production assistant, to be able to deliver the news in whatever capacity that I had. But this all started when I joined GMA 7, not in the News and Public Affairs Department, but for a children's show called Uncle Bob's Lucky 7 Club. So for those born in maybe the 1960s and 70s, you know Uncle Bob's Lucky 7 Club. I joined them in 1988, and that basically started my career in television, and that put myself one foot in the door in GMA News and Public Affairs. So, you know what, folks, can you imagine anything farther away from CNBC, BBC, and now CNN Philippines than what I experienced when I started my career way back in 1988. I wanted to give up because I was just a production assistant, a segment producer, but my dream was eventually to become a reporter and a news anchor. And it took years. It didn't take a year. It took 2, it took 3 years. I became frustrated, but I said, no, this is what I want to be. This is my goal in life, to be a broadcast journalist. So I persevered, I worked hard, and I got to where I wanted to be. I dared really, folks, to dream big. I imagined myself as part of an international news organization. To make that dream a reality, I put in the extra hours, I did extra work, I worked in the trenches, which led me to where I am today, continuing to live my dream. We can only pursue a dream if we dare to dream it, dare to imagine the best, and be the greatest version of ourselves in our dreams. You know, in the corporate world, we have to make it happen. We can't make other people make it happen for us. We have to work hard, because if we think small and we believe small, we can only achieve just as much. But by dreaming to be the best person that we can possibly become, we will already have made ourselves better. And, you know, speaking of the best, I would like also to dedicate my career to all the Pinoys around the world, especially our overseas foreign workers, our overseas Filipino workers. I was one of them for 25 years. Our heroes, our OFWs. And we often hear of their stories and the sacrifices that they make in order to provide their families for a better future. You know, despite living in tough conditions and taking on difficult jobs, they still manage to meet life with a smile. I was the president of several Filipino organizations back in Hong Kong and Singapore, and I would always like to share my positivity, and I would always like to tell them that, you know, we always have to work hard, and we have to keep on smiling no matter what. Smiling, even despite all the adversity and challenges that we're facing right now. You know, that is the quintessential Pinoy: resilient, courageous, highly intelligent, persevering, but most of all, extremely kind-hearted. So now that I have my shows on CNN Philippines, The Final Word, which is every weeknight, Monday to Friday at 9 in the evening on Channel 9 and Channel 14, as much as possible, I have a segment. Usually the final segment is always allocated to an inspiring story, an uplifting story, a positive story that at least will make every Filipino or any international Filipino who's watching us on Facebook, on social media, and on television smile a little bit. We just cannot talk about all the depressing news about COVID-19 and all the political grandstanding that's happening around us, because there is so much positive and great news that is also happening around us. And I want to highlight this. And also one of the positive stories and one of the inspirational stories, and I'm sure I want to have him one day on my program, if he will basically give me time, is Coach Chot Reyes. He is an inspirational story. He is a positive story. And, you know, I hope everyone will stay on right after this to listen to him, because he has done so much for the Philippines and he has done so much for Philippine basketball. Coach Chot Reyes, saludo ako sa'yo. And I do hope we can have you one day on The Final Word to talk about, you know, what you've done in your career and what you're doing next. And I also have my business show called The Exchange. It's every Friday night at 8 in the evening and replayed on weekends on CNN Philippines. And we try to help a lot of Filipinos, you know, try to find jobs. What are the options right now to be able to earn a living if you don't have a job? So this Friday, we're talking about the YouTube economy. A lot of us want to be vloggers right now. How do you make money out of the YouTube economy? And my guests will be like Jaja Padilla and Mikey Bustos. And then we have Silvestre Bello, who is the labor secretary. What must be done about this 13-month pay? Working people need this 13-month pay this coming December. I mean, we're already having a difficult time in our lives, and then now they'll be taking the 13-month pay away from us? No. And what other jobs are available right now? And what must be done for us to upscale, to improve our skills to be able to find other jobs? And we also have somebody from Lazada. We'll be talking about how do you set up your own little store in Lazada and what are the requirements. So we'll be talking to the CEO of Lazada. So all of these programs, we try in one way or another, try to be a public service to Filipinos here and overseas, and see what are the other opportunities that are available for us during this global health crisis. So, ladies and gentlemen, participants, as a broadcast journalist, my goal every night is to give the public, you, an accurate, truthful, and unbiased account of the news. To be objective is my commitment, Rico Hizon, and my duty to every Filipino. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. This is Rico Hizon reporting live via Zoom. Mabuhay ang Pilipinong mamahayag. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. God bless our country. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you very much.